So today I want to talk about a 4-letter word. Some people consider it a bit of a dirty word, a taboo, something not talked about in polite conversation. Some people don't mention the word at all, but I think it's important and it's a very big part of Forest School. Hi, I'm Lou and this is Lily Rowe, and the word, of course, is play. Such an innocent word, but one that gets mixed responses from different people. You hear the word kind of being bandied about like they're just playing, just as if play wasn't important. Or do your work first and then you can go play, as if work and play had to be two different things. Play time, as if you could put a neat little boundary around play and you play at this moment but not in this moment. I've even heard early years practitioners tell me that they're not allowed to use the word play in their nursery because if the kids go home and tell the parents that they've been playing all day, that they get complaints from the parents. So this word play can be used almost in a derogatory sense, can be really undervalued in our culture. So in this video, we're here to big up play, to tell you how important it is, how it's completely essential for humanity, and how it's a core part of Forest School. One of the Forest School principles is that Forest School uses a range of learner-centred processes to create communities for learning and development. So learner-centred, that basically means play or choice, that everything's centered around the learner. And this is because play is essential and hugely valuable for human development. In fact, I would dare to say that play is how we self-actualize, to use a phrase from humanistic psychology, but self-actualization, reaching the peak of our potential, realizing our gifts in the world. Self-actualization happens through the process of play, and therefore we want to support it at Forest School. Friedrich Froebel, the grandfather of the kindergartens in the early 1800s, apparently said that play is the highest form of human development in childhood. It's a very expression of the child's soul. So quite a different way of looking at it compared to, oh, they're just playing. So play has been valued in the past and it is still hugely valued in the present. In fact, it's part of the UN Conventions on the Right of the Child, the right to freely play and access to recreational activities is within Article 31 on the rights of the child. That's basically the UN document for children's human rights, and that's for children up to the age of 18. So it is written down in law that a child has human rights to the need to play. Neuroscientists have found that the drive to play comes from the limbic system part of our brain, which is slightly older, evolutionary speaking, compared to our big cortex that makes us human. And therefore, the drive to play is not uniquely human. In fact, pretty much all mammals play. Also, some birds play. Even some reptiles have been observed playing. So this to me suggests that there is an evolutionary necessity to play. I'm sure any of us who keeps pets know that you can even play between species. You know, humans play with dogs or dogs play with humans, depending on which way around you want to look at it. So play actually transcends species boundaries. There's some fantastic footage and a story about polar bears and huskies that if you have never seen, I recommend looking that up on YouTube. But the story goes that there's a guy who keeps a lot of sled dogs in the Arctic Circle and his huskies are chained up. And one spring he witnesses a hungry polar bear coming down to approaching his dogs, and he thinks, well, oh dear, that's it, you know, the dogs are chained up, an easy meal for a hungry polar bear. And as he watches, the dog does the dippy leg thing, you know, the play signal for in dog language, and the bear responds to that, and the dog and the bear are wrestling and playing, and the bear's hugging the dog and the dog's on its back like this, and they're playing, and apparently the bears come back every year to come and play with the dogs. So in that example, the need to play overrode the need to eat. So just think about that for a moment. That's how essential play was to that polar bear. It outrode his need to eat. So play must be hugely valuable, not just to humans, but for all sorts of species. And we kind of know this in our core, in our essence. Maybe the bears and the dogs know something that we don't and value it more than some humans do, perhaps. But what is play? So what do we mean by the word play? There are many definitions out there, but the one that I tend to use is the one that's used in the playwork principles, which is the professional and ethical framework for play workers. And so in that definition, it defines play as a process that is freely chosen, personally directed, and intrinsically motivated. So let's unpick those three things for a moment. So first thing it has to be is freely chosen. So no one's coerced me to play. I've chosen to do that activity, that behaviour, that thing, whatever it is that I'm doing. Secondly, it's personally directed. So I have control over my own play. I can adapt it, I can change it, I can make up stuff as it goes, it can evolve. Perhaps if I'm playing with other people, that might be negotiated, perhaps, but I've always got the choice to leave the play if it's not fulfilling what I want the direction to go in. And then finally, intrinsically motivated. So I'm getting a sense of satisfaction from the play itself, that I want to continue doing it. It's satisfying my needs. I'm not being, again, manipulated or coerced to do that activity or behaviour or thing from any external source. For example, through rewards. People aren't saying, play nicely and I'll buy you a bag of sweeties, or I'll give you a house point, or you'll get a sticker, or even praise can be considered an external reward. So I'm doing that play just purely for my own sense of gratification. It's intrinsically motivated. So the reason I like this particular definition is it can really broaden out what you consider to be play. I guess when you say play, and particularly play in childhood, there are certain stereotypes that might come to mind. Children playing tag, or building dens, or climbing trees, or those images might immediately come to mind. And of course, those images are great. That's fantastic play, but play doesn't have to be looking like that by this definition. Play could look quite serious, it could look quite calm, it could look messy, it could look tidy and neat, it could look big scale, it could look small scale, it could be imaginative, it could be very logical and methodical, it could be with other people, it could be on your own. There's different ways of playing, and of course every person will have their own unique thing that is their play, that they get that internal sense of satisfaction. And what one person's play might be another person's chore, or they might really find it boring. So play will be unique to the individual as well. An example I like to give about exploring this broadness to the play is Albert Einstein, which, not that I know much about Albert Einstein, but I bet he would be a good bloke to go down the pub and have a pint with. But I reckon when Albert Einstein came up with the theory of special relativity, as in E equals mc squared, he was playing. Because if you look at these three features of play, he was doing all of those three things when he came up with that. So let's just explore this, if you will bear with me. So first of all, freely chosen. at the time, Albert Einstein wasn't employed as a scientist, he was working as a clerk in a patents office. So no one told him, go Albert, go and create the theory of relativity, go and do that. No one told him to do that. He did it out of his own free choice because that was his thing. That's what he enjoyed doing. Yes, he did. And then secondly, personally directed. Well, he came up with, groundbreaking science. It changed physics from that point forward. There might have been scientists that influenced him and that he maybe read their work and it kind of helped steer him a little bit. But fundamentally, he was breaking new ground. He was personally directing what he was doing. He was imagining riding beams of light, faster than the speed of light. I don't know how he did it. I don't really understand it, if I'm being truthful, but he did it. He imagined it. And then thirdly, intrinsically motivated. Again, he wasn't doing it as a job. He wasn't getting paid for it. And as I understand it, it took about 4 years before anyone took notice of his work as well. So he didn't get even the fame at that point. Sorry, nearly got ran over by a mountain biker. Typical, as we're just talking about Einstein. So what was I saying? So I understand it. It took about 4 years before any other scientist took hold of his work and realised how brilliant it was. So in the beginning, he didn't get money or fame or anything like an external reward to have come up with that formula. So he did it just purely because it's what satisfied him. He wanted to do it. He was intrinsically motivated to do it. Of course, fame and fortune might have come later to him, but at that point, it was play. So Albert Einstein was playing when he came up with E=mc², which has transformed the course of human understanding in terms of science and physics. But, he was just playing. Could you imagine if someone had said to Albert, "Hey Albert, stop doing that, stop playing, come and do your work, go and do some filing." The world would be a different place. So, play can really be the apex, the highest form of human expression. It can be a way of realising our gifts to the world. It's through play that self-actualisation happens. It could be the most important thing that we do as humans. Yes, it can be, Bubs. The most important thing we do as humans on this planet is to play. So we need to celebrate it. We need to help people get to a state of play. So the other thing I wanted to point out to you is I think that within our culture, we are living in a bit of a play crisis. I think there's quite a lot of play deprivation, in terms of this definition of what we're talking about, in terms of true play. And it's understandable. We live in a very busy world, lots of curriculums packed into schools. Then, people might be going to clubs and lots of organised activities. Parents are worried to allow kids to go out and play on their own, perhaps like previous generations did. There might even be a lack of suitable play spaces now for children to go and play in. And then, of course, we have got increased technology and things that might keep people indoors more to play. And something I wanted to explore with you is sometimes the misuse of the word play. Because often when I say this to parents, I think there's a lack of play going on. People will argue back, no, my kids are playing all the time. They're always on their computer playing computer games. Now, I would argue that the word play does not include playing computer games, even though we use that word. And the reason is, if you hold computer games up against those three features of play, it doesn't work, it doesn't stand. So let's look at that. So computer game, firstly, is it freely chosen? Okay, I'll give you that one. Yes, it could be freely chosen. In fact, often is. People love to play a computer game. They're quite often desperate to play a computer game. So they might have that one. But the second one, personally directed. Well, no, because a computer game has limits. It's been written in a certain way and you can only do certain things within the parameters of the game. admittedly, there are some games that are more creative perhaps than others. There are some that give you much more scope to create and build and things like that, but you still can't do anything beyond the boundaries of the game. Unless, of course, you're a hacker. I'd say computer hacking probably is play, because you're making that up and you're breaking boundaries. But playing the game, I would say, isn't personally directed. And then thirdly, computer games are definitely not intrinsically motivated. They are full of external rewards. You know, bing, 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 you've got top score, you're on our leaderboard, you've unlocked this secret chest, you get this bonus, this bounty, or you've done this puzzle, so you get the alternate ending. Whiz bang, woo, your top score. All of those are little bits of external reward designed to hit our brains and release lots of dopamine to kind of get us addicted to them. You know, you've got to recognise that there's multi-billion dollar industries that make computer games that are gearing them up to take our attention, to gear our attention towards them. So they can be quite addictive. Now, I don't want to be on a technology bashing rant. I just want to point out that it's not true play, okay? Computer games may be enjoyable and in moderation are fine, I'm sure, but they're not true play, and therefore you cannot expect the benefits of play to come from gaming on your computer, because they're not the same thing. They don't have all of those three elements to make it play. I would also say for everything in moderation, everything in proportion. And currently in the UK, according to the statistics, children have just over 6 hours a day of time in front of screens. That's all screens, so TVs, computers, tablets, smartphones, compared to only just over an hour outdoors. So to me, that's not balanced, you know, everything in balance. But at the moment, the screens have got a lot more hours than the outdoor spaces do. So maybe Forest School can help redress that balance, because it's about getting to a point of pure play in the outdoors, which of course is brilliant, because nature is the true playground. It is the natural habitat for children. It's full of play opportunities and creative possibilities. So how do we support play at Forest School? How do we get to that place of true play? I have got some other videos about planning for Forest School, and particularly the short-term session planning one explains how we might have a certain pattern, a certain routine that transitions into a state of play and then transitions out of it. So do check those out if they're going to be useful to you. But here I want us to talk about that definition and look at that definition in terms of Forest School. So first of all, freely chosen. So it could be as simple as allowing children to choose what they want to do, the activities they want to do, the things they want to explore, how they want to test themselves in the world. It could be that simple if you've got learners who know how to play. Now, unfortunately, in our society, because there seems to be such a lack of play opportunities in terms of true play opportunities, child-led opportunities, some children don't know how to play. They don't know how to choose. And if you were to just say, go on, off you crack, off you pop, they just stand there. They don't know what they can do. They don't know how to play with sticks. They don't know how to climb trees or make a rope swing. They've never done those things. So in order to support choice, free choice, there might be an element of setting up the environment and modelling possible opportunities. So this is where sometimes doing some adult direction in terms of open-ended games that certainly explore the senses, or the type of treasure hunting kind of games, as I call them, if they're open-ended and they encourage exploration, those sorts of games could be really helpful to start showing possibilities of what we can do out here. But we'd only use them for as long as we needed to. Once the learners were able to make choices about what they wanted to do, then we'd allow that, of course. This is also where good observation comes in as well, because through observing the learners we can make best guesses about what activities might spark their interest, and therefore which activities to choose to model for them, and also to some extent what additional equipment that we might want to bring. Like, so for example, if we notice a child seems to be interested in bugs or mini beasts, maybe we'll think, oh, we'll bring some bug pots or some little reference guides about mini beasts next session, see whether that takes their interest, see whether that helps them make a choice over what they want to explore. Then secondly, personally directing. So this is about allowing children to take the control back, basically take the power, take the control back over what it is that they're doing. So when a child comes up to you with their idea and they're like, I want to make a car, or whatever it is that they want to do, it's about not making assumptions as to what that car should look like or how we should go about it. It's allowing them to lead the way. So that might be using good, careful questioning. You know, okay, so what are you thinking about this car? What sort of material are you thinking we can use? What sort of shape do you want it to be? Kind of tell me more about it. So allowing them to lead, allowing them to create their own hypotheses to test in the world, allowing them the opportunity to try stuff out, to possibly even fail a little bit, because that's brilliant. That gives us scope to try again, to adapt, to reflect, to review. And because Forest School is about building a very safe and secure emotional environment, it can be a very good opportunity for learners to try stuff out and take risks. I don't mean just physical risks, I mean emotional risks as well. Yes, but take some risks out there, you know, put yourself out there, try stuff out, find out about the world around you. So allowing that. And of course, that's only possible because Forest School leaders are very good at doing dynamic risk assessments. Sometimes learners will take things in a direction that you can't possibly have guessed that they would go in that direction, and you haven't done your written down risk assessment for it. But because we're constantly dynamically risk assessing, that allows the learners to be able to take things down paths that we maybe never imagined that they'd go down. Then finally, there's intrinsically motivated. Now, this, in my experience, is the toughest one, because it's the one that is so alien to us in our culture. We live in a very rewards-based culture, and particularly mainstream education tends to be run through, you know, sanctions and rewards tends to be the most common behaviour strategy within schools, for example. So this is why Forest School is non-judgmental. It's non-judgmental because through external rewards, it detracts from the play experience. It can completely destroy a person's play if they're hung up on external rewards. So we try to be non-judgmental. So that means we don't use sanctions and rewards at Forest School. I realise this is a little bit controversial what I'm saying, because, you know, within education we're told to use house point systems or circle time, or not circle time, what do I mean? Golden time, things like that, stickers, house points, praise. We're told to use all of these things because that's what you do with children. That's how, you know, a good classroom is run. So I appreciate it's a bit controversial, because at Forest School we want to use none of that. We want to be non-judgmental, and that means not just non-judgmental in terms of sanctions and criticisms or punishments. We mean non-judgmental also in terms of positive things like praise or house points. So this can be a new thing to try and get our head round. So to be non-judgmental. Now, in my mind, we want learners to be doing the things at Forest School because they want to do them. It's their play. It's about them, their learning process, their challenges, their pitfalls, their overcoming obstacles. It should be about them. If a child is doing things because they're seeking my approval, they're looking for my praise, or they're wanting a sticker or a house point, then it doesn't become about them. They change their behaviour to try and get that reward, whether it's my praise or whether it's a sticker. They will change what they do to meet the needs of others, to try and please the adults around them. And this is been observed in psychology. In children, even very young children, can change their behaviour to please the adults around them. So within Forest School, we use non-judgmental alternatives. So, for example, a lot of this is to do with how we might talk and what dialogue we use. So, for example, using statements such as "I notice" instead of making judgments on somebody. So, I've noticed you tie a square lashing around those 2 sticks, and I noticed you've made a picture frame kind of thing, instead of, "Oh, that's good how you've tied those things." So I'm not even using the judgment of good or bad on anything. Which again, it takes practice. We have to be non-judgmental on ourselves as well. Don't beat yourself up about it, because praise is so deeply rooted within our culture. And what I've noticed is children, even very young children particularly, they're not after our praise or judgment when they bring you something to show you it. They don't want our praise, they want our attention. And those are 2 very different things. They want to share whatever it is that they found. You know, they found this wonderful leaf and they think it's the best thing. If you imagine a little toddler, they want to share this amazement with you. They don't want a pat on the head and go, "Oh, good girl, well done." That's not what they want. They want you to engage with them. They want you to share their experience. They want maybe to have a conversation about it. And sometimes praise can shut down that conversation. You know, "Oh, well done. So what? You know, we can't even discuss the leaf." You know, if you ask questions, if you say, "Oh, I notice that leaf's got a hole in it," maybe that opens up the door for a conversation. So we're very mindful about how we use language, and you try to make it non-judgmental. This is enough content for a video in itself. Maybe I'll do one. But I often get asked about, well, how do you resolve conflict if there are behaviour issues or something like that at Forest School? So I'll just point you in the direction of, there are a couple of strategies out there that I personally use. One of them is non-violent communication, which is a way of talking, certainly in heated moments, developed by Marshall Rosenberg. And there's also like restorative justice practices as well that might be used as well at Forest School. So you might want to check those things out. Another person I'd signpost you to, if you're finding this discussion about rewards challenging, is Alfie Kohn, who wrote the book Punished by Rewards, and he also wrote the book Unconditional Parenting. So I would recommend checking him out. There's lots of videos of him on YouTube as well. So he puts it much more eloquently than me as to the reasons why we should be non-judgmental. In my experience, I've also noticed that the older a person is, the harder it is to get them to a state of play. So that's something to bear in mind when you're planning your Forest School programs. Think about the age of the person. So often little kids, little early years children, they need hardly any support to play. They're already in that frame of reference. You know, they're looking at the world with wonder and awe, and everything's brilliant, and there's natural curiosity. Wait a few years, kind of get up to Key Stage 2, kind of junior age, you know, 10-year-olds or whatever, and already when you say you can go play, you can choose what you want to do, they look at you quizzically as if they're not sure you're telling the truth. You know, they're so used to the education system, sometimes not always saying what they mean, that they look at you kind of going, is this a trick? Is this a trick? I don't know. And then you get to teenagers and they just kind of like look at you like, you know, yeah, right, I can choose. There's going to be some sort of test or something in there. They don't believe you at all. And then, you know, adults, well, adults have almost forgotten what play is, unfortunately, sometimes. Not all adults, but certainly some. So yes, do think about the age group you're working with, because older people tend to need more help to get to that point of true play. It's also worth reflecting as a practitioner where you are at with your own ability to play, because as a forest school leader, you're going to need to facilitate play, which means modelling play fundamentally. So can you recognise when you're playing? You know, what gets you freely chosen, personally directed and intrinsically motivated? What elements in your life fulfil those three criteria and can be considered play for you? So that's the way we help people play at Forest School. We better go out and play. Do you have a tip of how you've helped support play at your forest school? Do let me know in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed this video, do consider giving us a thumbs up and to subscribe to our channel so you can join us in the woods again next time. And thanks for watching. Forest School has true play at its core, freely chosen, self-directed and wanting more. In the woods, playing comes naturally. So let's all head out to the trees.